Ask her.
Ask her.
Ask her
About philanthropy.
Ask her.
about change.
Ask her about power.
Ask us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Ayot. I am a women's human rights lawyer from Uganda, working with War Child Canada. I'd like to thank the Stephen Lewis Foundation and this wonderful audience, and above all, the African women and girls. You are the reason I am here today. I was born and raised in a remote countryside that has barely known peace in decades. And poverty stares our community in the face with every sunrise. As a common girl, my story is no different from that of thousands of other girls. I've seen the ravages of horrific crimes, unrelated violence, epidemics, and crises. From northern Uganda to Darfur to Goma and to another place that you may know. Today, I have Nepal at heart. I have not just seen these unspeakable horrors, but as a single mother of a 4-year-old daughter, I refuse to remain silent. That, my people, is empowerment for every woman. It is a test of courage on a rather red-hot front line of battling with violence against women and girls. And that is what conscience demands of all of us in here today. As many of you may already know, for the last 2 decades, northern Uganda, where I come from, experienced violent armed conflicts, which have had devastating impacts on the population. The protracted conflict between the government of Uganda and the Lord's Resistance Army killed tens of thousands of civilians, led to abduction and recruitment of as many as over 38,000 children, and has seen gross human rights violations by the armed forces, including sexual violence. The conflict displaced more than 1.8 million people into internally displaced persons camps. In June 2006, the government of Uganda and the LRA entered peace negotiations. Although the Juba peace talks failed to produce a final signed agreement, the talks ushered in relative peace in northern Uganda and a complete phase out of the IDP camps. The peace I, my daughter, and every single woman and girl today in northern Uganda deserves to enjoy. Yes, the sound of the guns is silent, but the battle of its ravages is facing us every single day as we rebuild our households. The war with the guns has ended. The war in the families has increased. Sexual violence, whether committed as a war crime, crime against humanity, or an act of genocide, is often part of the tragic and brutal patterns of crimes committed during armed conflict and in the context of mass atrocities. In addition to extreme physical and psychosocial trauma suffered by survivors and witnesses, the overwhelming majority of survivors never receive justice. They face considerable challenges in accessing the medical, the psychosocial, the economic support that is necessary to help them rebuild their lives, the lack of accountability of those who commit crimes of sexual violence in conflict exhibits impunity. Today, northern Uganda is part of an impoverished post-conflict region that throws up a unique set of challenges. The gender imbalances of traditional society have been further intensified and exacerbated by the events of a brutal war that thrived on immense physical, sexual, and psychological violence. The war damaged the social fabric of the families and undermined the once traditional society of strong cultural values. Now, domestic violence waves through these helpless communities. In my legal practice work, I have witnessed some of the deepest of women's silent pains, domestic violence. Just when I thought I'd become courageous enough to face this shared pain every single work day, then I was hit by this reality when I met 38-year-old Jane. Having been married off at a tender age of 14, Jane has survived many silent wars inside her marital home than any one of us in this room can ever imagine. Jane has been battered, sexually assaulted, raped, depossessed, and emotionally and physically abused. Countless times, she spent her nights in the nearby bushes, which gave her more protection than her turbulent home, than her community, than her nation. The evidence of this social evil was what I could see in Jane's single eye. As she said to me, "He did it. I feel it. Nobody else sees it. It took my eye, and everyone else used their own to just watch him do it and get away with it." That was 18 years ago. Today, Jane is a beneficiary of a community sensitization and a member of a community support group. She has been supported to speak up, and she knows she must not keep silent anymore. Jane came out and reported a case of violence, and I acted immediately to support this indigent African woman. Her abusive husband was apprehended by police. Surely, this would be the much wished for apprehending for Jane and a sight of justice. Can you guess what happened after 2 weeks? I guess not. Jane comes back and pleads for the release of her abuser. Certainly, somebody will then wonder, after so many years of torture, why would Jane want the tormentor released from detention? But then, sitting with Jane that day and listening to her story, I came to the understanding of her wishes and choices and her reason. For over 20 years, she completely depended on her abuser for livelihood and for social identity. She felt helpless on her own. It was at this point that I came to the realization that the courtroom is not the only solution to stopping violence against women and girls. There is need to empower a woman with livelihood, to fend for her family, and to fend for herself and for her family, and a voice to safely speak out so that she is not afraid to take charge of her home and her children's lives while her abuser is locked up in a prison cell. The legislative framework in Uganda today, because of the recent reforms for gender equality, is now really good and strong. Then why is it that survivors are still having such a difficult time? Despite the new laws, the response to sexual gender-based violence encounters a number of challenges. The justice system still ignores, denies, and tactfully condones violence against women and girls. And corruption has many times offered protection to perpetrators. Because of corruption, many women and girls today in Uganda still don't have what they really need and deserve: accessible, reliable, affordable, and timely justice. Winning a sexual violence case against a perpetrator considered rich or one with the money in this community is like winning a lottery. We all know how difficult it is. As difficult as it may be, one girl's struggle became my own struggle for justice. At the tender age of 14, she had been defiled several times by our school director. Many times I've had this phrase, it's only the poor who go behind bars. The rich will always walk free. Little did I know the reality until I was presented with this case. According to the Uganda penal law on defilement, when the perpetrator is a person in authority, like it is in this case, then the case is termed as aggravated defilement, triable only by a judge in the High Court, and attracts a heavier penalty. Our nightmare began when the charge was reduced to simple defilement. That attracts a lighter penalty, and the perpetrator was released on court bail before a chief magistrate's court, which should never have been the case under any circumstances. With roadblocks at every door, only a well-orchestrated petition to the Director of Public Prosecution could get the case amended to aggravated defilement. Today, the people in northern Uganda have renewed hope. This little girl will be afforded the justice she deserves, the justice every survivor of violence deserves. Many cases today in northern Uganda are facing such deliberate challenges. It takes courage and commitment to step up and stand for women and girls. And this is my own calling. With compassion and by taking the survivor's struggle as our own, the perpetrators will have no hiding places, no amnesty, no safe harbor. They must be pursued by any and all means at our collective disposal. Over the years, Watch Out Canada has worked with me and many other women lawyers in Uganda to improve approaches to sexual gender-based violence prevention. But just when we thought war dust was settling in northern Uganda, then war broke out again in South Sudan. On December 15th of 2013, over 90,000 South Sudanese refugees crossed over to Uganda, the majority of them women and children. Settling down in over 12 refugee settlements. Today, Uganda is now preparing to host over 800,000 Sudanese refugees. For 4 months without adequate protection services, women and girls and children suffered countless ordeals of violence. With a culture of social tolerance for violence against women, broken systems of rule of law, and ethnic tensions, response services were desperately needed. Today, courageous men and women from Warchild, Canada, have left behind their own families and made the refugee settlements their home, so they can continue to serve women and girls. How could I not be a part of this sacrifice and join them? Thousands of women and children are now benefiting from new 7-day mobile legal aid clinic services, legal mediation, legal help desks, legal awareness, legal counseling and advice, and a 24-hour toll-free protection helplines. We have also initiated and established a forum for women and girls to voice their views and opinions and support them follow through, participate, and get involved in development agendas, and innovation that is getting attention for replication. At Warchild Canada, we engage local experts. Our success in providing access to justice comes from our appreciation of the local experts who serve the communities in which they were born and raised. They have knowledge and appreciation of the communal context. They demonstrate commitment and passion for helping their own community. This is the reason I've given up living in the cities, counting stacks of dollars in fully air-conditioned legal practice chambers, and rubbing shoulders at dinner meetings with accomplished city lawyers. It is to serve my indigent mothers and sisters, to give back to my people who need my help more every day. We are the experts in helping our very own people. Invest in us, the local experts. Thank you.